us your concerns so that we know what's going on. I'm going to stop there and let everybody else speak. And with that, I'm going to introduce our associate board member, former Vice President, Mr. Richard Bionden.
Well, I was actually former president. Yeah, I was actually former president. So what I'm going to do is introduce the board members. So I'm on the board, but I'm an associate member because I moved on the other side of St. Charles. I live on Hillary Street now. And so Keith, where's Keith Hardy? Keith, stand up, Keith. Keith is our vice president. And our treasurer is George Johnson. George, would you like to give us a little report for the treasurer's report, fiscal year report, if you don't mind?
Sure. Not a ton to say, but so last year we collected $825, and we spent about $2,900. So we are going through the funds. All of this money, for the most part, goes to this meeting, signs, postcards. Y'all see all of that. I think it's important we get more donations, memberships if you can, because if we need it for the next issue we don't know that's coming, it helps us to immediately jump on it. Whether we've used it for an attorney in the past, couple years ago, we used it for signs. We don't always know where it's coming, but we're spending more than we're taking in. So anything really helps, or if you have any neighbors who aren't here, that could go to the website and join up, and it would really help. Appreciate it.
Now, secretary, did we ever get a secretary? No, we don't.
No. But we're looking for a secretary.
But we're looking for a secretary. Yes. So I'm going to read this a little bit on what's on the back about what Mari does and why you should really support Mari by joining it. We meet regularly. Actually, we meet online once a month. And it might look like we only appear here for these annual meetings, but in the background, Mari is always doing stuff. Over the years, we've successfully worked with the city to close problem bars, to limit the number of bars on Maple Street, to get legislation control for D2Ds. Everybody knows what D2Ds are? Doubles to dormitories. And that was actually a phrase that was coined by our illustrious Keith Hardy. He came up with that month. Okay, appeared at BZA and CPC hearings regarding D2Ds, and businesses seeking permits reported and sought to remedy problems such as illegal construction, noise, trash, street construction, and other issues to the city. We are a volunteer organization. We have no employees, and the board members and volunteers do all the work. So Mari receives no funds from the city and depends on membership dues to pay for postage and printing, etc. So you must be a resident domiciled in the Mari area, which is Audubon Street, St. Charles, Carrollton, Willard, be a member. But non-residents can be associate members. So we encourage you, if you have not joined, it really would be great if you could become a member of Mari. I've been in Mari for I don't know how many years. So, and I always enjoy coming to these annual meetings. Now, representative for Amy Freeman. Is she here? Oh, okay. Introduce yourself. I didn't have that. Oh, I have one. You need a mic.
Yeah, I'll take a mic because I have a little voice.
All right, can everyone hear me? Yeah. Okay, hi everyone, my name is Razan. I am Representative Amy Freeman's legislative assistant. Rep. Freeman is currently in Baton Rouge right now because, as you already know, we started session on the 15th, and it's supposed to go up until the 23rd, but they're saying it might be over tomorrow, so we'll see. But I do have some updates for you guys. So, first of all, thank you for re-electing Representative Freeman without opposition. Her inauguration was January 8th, and so thank you for trusting her to represent you for another 4 years. Also, she got her committee placements, and so she's going to be on appropriations again, and she's on retirement again, and she's on insurance. So if you know, insurance is a really big crisis right now, so if you have any questions or any complaints or want to share with us your story, please reach out to us. And then a little bit about the special session. So there's a lot going on. First of all, they're talking about changing our open primaries to a closed primary system in Louisiana. I got a lot of emails. Most of you guys, all the emails that we got in this district are against it. So Representative Freeman, as a leader in the Democratic caucus, fought a lot with the legislature and her colleagues. They fought a lot, but unfortunately, it did make it out of the House today, and now it's on the Senate side. It's a trap. She tried to advocate for the independents in her district. I think we have like 21% independents in District 98, but also a lot of Republicans are even against it. But unfortunately, our governors threatened a lot of Republicans, and so their hands are tied. He tried meeting with the Democrats, but I mean, like, what is he gonna do, right? He can't threaten us, like, take away money from Sewage and Water Board. He already kind of did that. So that's what's going on. And then another thing is, so the maps. The maps are going to be debated tomorrow. So as you know, we have to redraw the 2nd Congressional District to create a minority majority seat. And Jeff Landry does not want to do that, right? It's ordered by the court. And so Representative Freeman is supporting the map by the Democratic caucus. And so they're going to be debating it tomorrow. There's a lot of back and forth, but either way, even if it doesn't successfully turn out, it's going to go to the Supreme Court and they're going to draw it without any legislative input. So either way, we're winning. But it's going to be a process, so tune in tomorrow. And let's see. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much what's going on in session. So after this, there's going to be another crime session, February, I think it's going to be February 22nd, but it's not called yet, so it's not official yet. But that's going to be tackling crime. We have no idea what to expect. We're still taking it session by session. And then right after the crime session, there is going to be the regular session, which is going to be March 11th until June 3rd. And so if you guys have any bill ideas or anything we should follow or oppose, reach out to our office. And then the final news is, the word is out already, but this is my last day with Representative Freeman. I accepted a new job that pays me more than 3 cents an hour, because that's how much I get paid right now. Unfortunately, it's a law and it's been capped, and Rep. Freeman is trying to raise the law, but, you know, not sustainable. She gets paid $16,000 a year, so I get paid more than she does. But I am going to be working with a national organization that does research for legislators across the country, so I'm really excited. But that does not mean our office is shutting down, right? Like, we have 2 amazing interns, Isabel and Brandon, who are here right now. So if you guys are clapping for them. But if you guys have any questions or have any anything that you want to reach out to us, still call the state phone number. The cell phone is 504-205-7787. And I left some business cards at the table back there. So Isabel or Brandon are going to be the ones responding to you guys. And also reach out, still email us. There's always going to be someone checking the email. Does anyone have any questions?
Good luck to you.
Okay, thank you.
Rosanna, thank you very, very much. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
So now we're going to hear from our council member, Joe Giarrusso, who has been instrumental in helping us stop the short-term rentals and the overlay. He's been a great asset to our neighborhood. And he's also fielded a lot of trouble when we didn't agree with him, but he still is our friend. Mr. Giarrusso.
Well, good evening, thank you. I don't know, did I kill the microphone?
Do you want the mic?
Yeah, I do. My voice is good, but not good. That works better. Does this one work?
No.
How about one more time? There we go. There we go. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me tonight. I can attest to the fact that how active the Maury board is. They are extraordinarily interested in your best interest, and they make sure they are in regular contact with us. I want to thank Rosin for all of her hard work. If it's any consolation, I think I make 4 cents an hour, so I feel your pain. And I want to talk to you briefly. This is obviously the annual meeting, which means Joe has an annual PowerPoint presentation. So there are a few things I want to talk to you about. I'm happy to field some questions. Usually when your neighborhood leader gets within 2 to 3 feet of me, that means that's my hook and it's time for me to get off, okay? So the first thing I'm going to talk about while Richard, I think, is getting everything ready is this year was a quadrennial reassessment year, which means that the city goes and, well, not the city, the assessor, I want to be very careful with my language, the assessor assesses all of the properties that are in the city, and then as a result of a citywide increase, all of the millages that we all have agreed to or that are constitutionally mandated get rolled back as a result of whatever the increase is. So I'll give you a hard example. Let's suppose NOPD has a millage of 1. It has 1 mill. If the assessor increased the assessment citywide by 10%, by law, that millage gets rolled back to 0.9. Everybody understand? Gets rolled back automatically. So then, the taxing authority can make essentially one of 4 decisions. The first one never happens. They can say, we're going to roll it back even further. That is never going to happen. You can say, number 1, we feel really good about what the increase means, so we're not going to roll the millage forward. Number 2, we think there's an issue, and though we don't want to roll all the way from 0.9 back to 1, we'll roll forward to 0.94. We think that's a little bit more bearable for people. And the last one is you can roll all the way forward. There are essentially now 3 or 4 taxing entities for New Orleans. The school board, which is voting tonight on their millages, they remain undecided. The city council, which controls the city's millages, as well as ultimately sewage and water boards, the flood authority, and the sheriff. The last 3 did not roll any of your millages forward. The only entity that is making a decision this evening about potentially rolling your millages forward is the school board. And as I said, they're voting right now, so I can't tell you what they did. Can we go back maybe 1 slide? Keep, yeah, because this part is important. The result of not rolling the millages forward from the city perspective, just the millages the city controls, means we're going to save taxpayers $140 million over the next 4 years. And if you take what the city did 4 years ago, it's over $200 million. So I know a lot of times people, I get all the time, I'm paying more, I'm seeing less, but I do want you to know that in my view, the council has tried to be as responsible as possible and make sure that we're trying to control the tax rates. And close to $250 million over 8 years is a significant amount of savings for taxpayers. I have a slide. The next slide shows some of the budget. I'm not going to go through each line item, but if you want to kind of go on the city's website, it's there for you to look at. It is an 800-page document, but you can search by what you're interested in and see what is going on. So if you want to know every department, how much they got, what their personnel is, what it stands for, it's all right there. I don't think it comes as any surprise for pretty much your public safety agencies are the ones that have the most and highest expenditures. Every year we try and work with all of the departments. I don't know where I see Elise close. I always say Elise close your ears one meeting. So Elise close your ears for this. So there's a little bit of a cat and mouse game between the administration and the departments that always happens. Because the administration wants to tell the departments, you need X amount of money to function this year. And the departments somehow whisper to the council, well, we really need this much money each year. So you're trying to balance what the administration thinks they need, what the departments think they need. And of course, I've never met a department who doesn't say we could use more money in the upcoming year. And we want to make sure that they're right sized, but not so fat that they need to go on the diet. Let's see, what's next? So after we get through budget materials, I think we can go to the next one, Keith. These are just some of the things the council included in the budget. We added an additional $7.5 million for blight remediation, for code enforcement. I know safety and permits and DPW are here tonight. We also added $17 million more really for affordable housing projects. That's on top of the $32 million we added last year. So $50 million for affordable housing projects throughout the city in order to try and make sure people have places to live. Along the same lines, $2.4 million for right to counsel for people who potentially are evicted, $2.5 million to fully fund new Healthy Homes program. Remember, that's primarily for larger apartment complexes where you've had scofflaws who've allowed the complexes to be in horrible, deplorable positions. And you really need inspections to make sure that they're being handled correctly. And the only way to make sure they're inspected is to have the inspector. So that's really what it's for. Some of these are more district specific: enhanced security in the French Quarter, $2 million for St. Claude Avenue, $1.1 million for call takers. OPCD is the Orleans Parish Communications District. The people who were intaking the calls as of last year at the communication district were making less money than NORD lifeguards. That, right, exactly. That is not a good look. And obviously we want to make sure there's parity for people who are such an important cog in our emergency wheel. We can't have calls going to the wrong places or things not done correctly. More money for homelessness, aid to violent crime victims. I also put $500,000 in the money for Medicaid for schools. The schools are leaving about $6 million on the table in federal money that they can be collecting annually. And my view is if you can put $500,000 into something in the short term and get a $6 million annual return year over year to help kids get the wraparound services they need, that's money extraordinarily well spent. All right, so one of the things the last council and this council maybe have been obsessed about are dashboards. Why do we like dashboards so much? One reason is because they provide information to the public. A second one is it's an easy resource for the public to have where frequently we don't have all of the answers that you're asking. And three, sometimes it's a good way to dispel what people may think by what is either supported or not supported by the evidence. So Sewage and Water Board, I think folks may remember after the flood in 2017 had a power and pump dashboard. They have brought that dashboard back. So if you go to Sewage and Water Board's website, it's literally pretty much the first icon. You can click and see what the power situation is, what the pump situations are. You can look at the different pump stations around the city if you're curious, and I think it's a wonderful resource in case you want to see all of those things. The other dashboard that we created as a result of my ordinance last year that the Department of Public Works just got online is the DPW maintenance dashboard. And this is just a snapshot that Claire's put on there. Now, I will tell you this. If you go to the DPW dashboard, it is programmed to only show you 1 month at a time. So I've gotten people who've emailed me says, Joe, there's no way that there should only be 200 catch basins that have been cleaned. Yeah, you're right, because it's been a month. So make sure you look at 12 months, 18 months, whatever time you want. And then maybe for the people in the back you can't see, what will happen is for catch basin requests, the one I mentioned, it will show you how many total requests have been made, how many have been closed, how many have been pending, and then right next to it is a map. And you can literally click on the map in every single point and see the status of what they've done. And it's not just catch basins, it's traffic signals, it's striping, it's abandoned cars, street lights. So whatever you want to see within that framework, pretty much that we get all the time from residents, is on that dashboard. And Keith's pulling up the Sewage and Water Board one right now that I just mentioned. Okay, next slide, Keith, if you don't mind. Sorry to make you my slide scrivener. All right, this is going to be a little bit tough to see, but I'm going to try and walk through it as quickly as I can. Remember, as a result of COVID, the city, got about $390 million from the federal government in ARPA money, American Rescue Plan Act money. And because the city, probably put too much money towards NOPD 2 years ago, and B, was conservative in their spending, and C, we emerged from COVID earlier than expected, we actually wound up having much more money than was anticipated for 2023 and now for the budget 2024. And so we put that money towards a number of different uses, a significant portion of which went to pay employees who had been furloughed and who were missing payment during COVID. Also, all city employees, and I see you guys in the room, so correct me if I'm wrong, 2 years ago, 5% pay increase. Last year, 2.5% increase. This year, 2.5% increase. and 2.5% increase again this year. I will tell you, city workers, all of them are chronically underpaid and have too much to do, but we felt like it was really important to try and keep up with inflation and make sure that we're trying to pay people what they're worth. So the city has on its website, and we're pressing for on a quarterly basis, money that the city council and the city have allocated to certain projects. And the good news is a significant portion of the money has been spent, and it says spent at the top of this, on certain things. So you can see at the bottom, the city spent close to $220 million on those salaries. That's the biggest slug at $165 million. $15 million on the Sewage and Water Board substation. That's the new, cleaner, more reliable source of power. It'll be the primary source of power as opposed to the turbines. $3.5 million on park and parkways, and then Keith, you can go to the next slide. The next slide shows what's unspent. And that's the part that always concerns council members, is because if we appropriate money for something, we want to make sure that it's being spent and spent well. Department of Public Works is working on getting the catch basin contract out. That's $10 million to clean a significant portion of the catch basins over the next 3 years. They have a right-of-way contract for striping and for other work that's in the process of being let. The Office of Workforce Development has, I think, close to $13 million that they're in the process of spending. So it's one thing when you can allocate the money, but it's the other thing you want to make sure it's actually going to all the things for which it's intended. Let's see. All right, crime is a question we always get. This is from the council's, again, dashboard, and I encourage everybody to go on there. You can look both at citywide numbers, you can break it down by districts, you can break it down by neighborhood. This is the crime dashboard for the city. It looks like this is through the end of December 31, 2023. Year to date, it says incidents are up by 109%. Query whether or not that's because people were reporting more than they were the year before. At one point, 2 years ago, the numbers for reports in District A had gone up, the reports in Districts D and E had gone down. And I said, how is that possible? There's more crime in some parts of District D and parts of E than in A. And the answer is people just got fed up with NOPD and stopped reporting. So sometimes you got to kind of dig past the data to see what's going on. I think Claire put on the next slide kind of what's going on in District A. In District A, it says more year-to-date incidents. A significant portion of that is almost certainly related to car break-ins. I think that is probably the one piece of crime that we hear about the most is car break-ins or car burglaries. Murders were down in District A. Slightly up last year from 14 to 17, but given where you are statistically the safest place in District A than any other part of the city. That's just the reality of what the numbers show. And if you look again, I know it's very hard to see, but auto thefts are almost up by 300% last year as opposed to 2022. That has been sort of the one issue that's been dogging the city and the police department. So I know that's going to remain a focus for them. All right, and then of course, you don't get out of Maury without talking about land use issues. So what I want to make sure that we discuss a little bit, as Richard mentioned and Keith and Pierre, is the overlay. We had an overlay originally for the doubles to dorms. As was expected, the developers did everything that they possibly could to try and move around the overlay, so we tightened the screws a little bit more. This is a permanent overlay. It will be reconsidered in 2026. The primary reason for the reconsideration is that both Loyola and Tulane are building new housing. They're supposed to come online in 2025. Given sort of inflation and building costs and everything else, I suspect it may not be till later in that year or early 2026. But Tulane's plan, I think, is to move freshmen, sophomores, and juniors all on campus by that point. So we want to make sure that if there's policy, it's good policy, and obviously ensuring the neighbors are being worked with. It permits 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms by right without off-street parking. It applies to all new constructions. And then one of the things Keith and Deborah and others were sure to fight for is prohibiting tandem parking to prohibit the parking requirement. That was one of the ways the developers were kind of trying to sneak around our parking requirements. What Claire's done on the next slide is just kind of show you residential versus commercial. I'm sort of a believer, if the rules say one thing, that you need to hew to what those rules are. Everything that's highlighted in pink is a commercial corridor where you could have an apartment complex or a business or a retail store. And so we said for everything that's highlighted in pink, if you want to put a double storm there, we're not going to stop you because that's commercially zoned. But all of the other white areas that are so heavily residentially zoned are going to be part of that parking overlay. And then the only other piece I would say is that, remember a couple of years ago, our friends in Broadmoor and Fontainebleau said they did not want to be part of the parking overlay. They didn't think this was a big enough problem. And then what wound up happening, and no surprise, is sort of what happened with short-term rentals in the corridor and then Bywater and Marigny, is because those areas abutted the university so closely, they saw a huge proliferation of doubles to dorms. So now those two neighborhoods are also a part of this as well. And then this is the university area design overlay. Again, the neighbors asked us to inquire about this. This is something we're looking at to have a design review for large-scale renovations and new constructions. The intent is to ensure development remains in scale with surrounding neighborhood. As Claire points out here, we're going to approve it on February 1st. And one of the reasons we were delayed this meeting is safety and permits. In addition, some other people had some extraordinary legitimate comments that we wanted to incorporate into the draft and make sure the neighbors had enough time to review them. And then the very last thing is, for me, that Pierre mentioned, is short-term rentals are on hold as far as enforcement is concerned right now. The judge is still reviewing them. What I will say is, we had a set of rules. The judge ordered that the council pass new regulations by March 30th of 2022. Out-of-state plaintiffs filed a lawsuit challenging the regime, the new regime that we created, and we're still in limbo about what's going to happen. While if I could tell you how federal judges would rule, I would certainly no longer be a council member anymore. I'd go into a different line of work. But if I were a betting man, I'd suspect the ruling will come after Mardi Gras. I just think they're going to let it get through Mardi Gras and then probably decide how they're going to rule. And I think the public knows that Councilmember Morrell, if the ruling goes too far south, has a motion prepared that would ban SCRs in all residential areas, period, full stop. I think the feeling among a number of my colleagues is we've tried a number of different ways. We're trying to balance residential needs, which are far more important, and making sure there isn't a heavy intrusion of commercial into significantly residential areas, with people who have taken on SDRs and who have started to make money for it. And like anything, once you give something to people, it's harder to take it back from them. But it is a privilege and not a right. And so, again, we're waiting on the court's ruling. So I know you all have a tight schedule, and DPW and safety and permits are on the docket, but I'm happy to field some questions either about what I presented tonight or about other questions. If you ask me a safety and permits and DPW question, there's almost 100% chance I'm going to say, oh, you know, ask them instead. So I'm happy to answer what I can and field other things. Yes, ma'am.
My name's Monica. I'm with UTNA, and I think we know each other maybe a little bit. What do you mean by tandem parking? What is that? What is that?
Tandem parking is like kind of parking right in front and behind each other. Yeah. So what was happening was, again, we were trying to create what we were looking for in the housing regime through limiting parking. So in other words, you add a bedroom, you have to have an extra parking spot. And the way that the developers were avoiding that is by saying, aha, now we have this tandem parking. And it was a loophole that was upsetting what we were trying to do. So we've eliminated that now. And again, I will always say I think the developers are going to try and find ways around the rules. I know code enforcement and safety and permits have difficult jobs, but at the same time, we know that developers are always trying to look for an edge, kind of like performance enhancing drugs. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Can you explain this rental property registry? I have a double live on one side, rent the other side out. How does that affect me?
I'm gonna look at safety permits. I think, does it apply to doubles?
2025.
Does it so for this year, you don't have to do anything, but in January 2025, there is a, like, an online registration process, like Tammy, that you just have to fill out a form and make sure the city has your information.
Does somebody come inspect it, or? No,
They removed the
what's that?
You're inspecting it.
You're inspecting, yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, it's like, you know, again, the hard part is we, the city, again, it is not as much a District A issue as it is in other parts of the city. But some of these apartment complexes, it's Charles Dickens-esque. It is really that bad. And what I will tell you, and I said this to somebody else today, if there's one thing I've learned being elected, it's that people who have less network, less agency, and less time. And the problem is they do not have the ability to beat down our doors in the same way and really try and tell the city where something is wrong. And the conditions, the human conditions that people are living in are horrible. So we're trying to, again, find that balance between not punishing landlords and people who are doing things the right way, and then making sure that people who are doing things the wrong way, that the city has a way of keeping up with them. And then I'll get to your one question. The only other thing I want to add is, again, for code enforcement today, I filed 2 ordinances. One that will create a code enforcement dashboard. So if you want to see about blight and where that stands in process and that being knocked down, that will come to pass at a certain point. And also, we've tried to streamline the process for demolition as well. To me, it seems like there's too many things that become barriers to property being demolished, and we just kind of want to make sure that moves more smoothly. And I think, as Ashley and Tammy can attest to, there are a lot of people who know how to game the city system on certain things, and there's Keith. I'm sure you'll chuckle hearing me say that. But we've tried to remove some of that for demolition. So, for example, if you've been cited with the demolition order, then you're going to have to prove to the city, either by buying materials or by having an executed contract, that you're going to fix the property that's been ordered to be demolished. So we want to make sure that people are being treated fairly, but at the same time being held to account. Yes, sir. You had a question. I'm sorry.
Yes, your slide just said you saved $135 million. I don't feel like I got rid of that. But does that mean there was a savings, or we just kept our increase from going up?
Well, I mean, if we roll the millages forward, that means you're going to get taxed more. So by not rolling the millages forward, that's a savings. That's how I view it. I mean, you can disagree, but that's I mean, and again, that I can understand, but the bottom line is, when the millages get rolled back as a matter of law, the taxing authority is called upon to vote about whether or not it's going to keep the millages at the roll back, to roll forward a little bit, to roll back all the way. And what I would argue is, I am keenly aware of the increased costs of insurance, of interest rates, of just services and everything, period. And so by not rolling that forward, that is, in my mind, a cost savings for everybody.
Is there a limit on how much our bill can go up?
Well, that's another good question. So maybe 1 or 2 years ago, Representative Willard filed legislation that said that the assessor couldn't increase your assessment by any more than 10% in any one year. And because it involved the state constitution, it had to be voted on by the entire state. It did great in New Orleans, but it got killed in, like, New Iberia. So I think one of the things that probably the legislature is going to need to think about is, how do we get something like that back on the ballot and educate our neighbors elsewhere that it isn't bad for them for that to happen. And look, I will tell you anecdotally, we moved to our house in Lakeview in 2009. I did not get reassessed until 2018 or 19, but at that point I went up 42% in 1 year. And I would say I was due to be increased, and I would have had zero problem with going up 7%, 8%, 9% incrementally over time. But that 42% bite off at one piece of time was a deep, deep swallow. And I know so many other people, and then we got hit a second time too. And I'll just tell you another one, this is, again, personal, but I've seen other people do this. We put in a pool because my girls were old enough, and because the permit was X amount, my assessment increased by X amount too. So even though the pool does not increase the asset of the house, and at most keeps the status quo or even decreases it, my assessment went up again. So by playing by the rules, you get punished too. And I know residents get frustrated when that happens as well. I'll take one more question, seeing Pierre standing up. All right. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Have a good evening.
And again, on the back of this flyer that we have, it has Joe Giarrusso and NOLA.com. Councilmember Giarrusso and his staff are extraordinarily responsive. They're very good. They've always answered our questions and been proactive. So if you have more questions that haven't been answered, please feel free to reach out to him or Mari. Next, we're going to hear from Ms. Elise Williams, who's with the Office of Neighborhood Engagement, for a few minutes, and she's going to introduce Director of Code Enforcement, Public Works, and Safety and Permits. Ms. Williams.
Good evening, how y'all doing? Thank you. My name is Elise Williams, and I work with the Mayor's Neighborhood Engagement Office, and what our office aims to do is to help solve quality of life concerns. And the way we do that is you can reach us via email, on the phone, or you can come in person. Monday and Tuesdays, right up the street at Nick's Library. I host community office hours from 10:30 until 5, so you can come in and get information about city departments if you need it, or you can report any concerns that you have about your community or anywhere in Orleans Parish that you may have a concern about, and that's at Nick's Library from 10:30 until 5 p.m. on Mondays and Tuesdays. I'll have flyers at the end of the meeting if y'all we also host events in each district focusing on either giving away, like we gave away toys in December to some youth. In February, we'll be hosting the first Coffee on Your Corner for the year, and that'll be on February 8th for District A. And the topic is street conditions, which is a very popular topic for everyone. The Department of Public Works, Roadwork NOLA, and Sewage and Water Board will be present to discuss current and upcoming projects. Sewage and Water Board will discuss service cuts and the timeline for repair. So if you have any quality of life concerns and maybe you don't know where they go, or maybe you're tired of sending an email and not getting a response, you can always contact me and I will follow up with the departments to ensure that we get some motion or at least some update on the progress of your concern. That's all I have before the departments come up. Does anybody have any questions? All right. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to have an idea why garbage is so overflowing in our area, and why, would you have anything to do with that? Quality of life, to me, the garbage in this area is just horrible.
Yeah, I can take that concern. I'm actually sitting right next to you, so I'll take your email address and then I'll reach out to the sanitation department.
I was
and follow up
wondering if,
with you.
do we have Ivy Waste coming in? Is that going to be our garbage pickup, or is it Richards? Or?
Yes, it's Ivy Waste.
Okay.
Thank you,
Well, we
Councilman.
pray for a miracle.
Yes, but I'll come in, I'll grab your email address and I'll get some details about your trash flow.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions or concerns?
Could you repeat the date of the meeting on the 12th Street Quality?
I'm sorry, can you say that
Could you
again?
repeat the date of the?
Yes, it's February 8th at 10 a.m. I also have flyers at the back. I'll be here after the meeting if you guys want to come and collect the flyer. It's at the Community Commitment Education Center at 10 a.m. on Spruce Street, 8540 Spruce Street. All right.
Thank you very much, ladies.
No problem. Thank you.
Next, we're going to have Mr. Anthony Davis, Director of Code Enforcement. Oh, he's not here. A representative of Mr. Davis' office. These nice two ladies, please introduce yourself.
I'm Ariana Patton. I'm the Chief of Staff of Code Enforcement.
Can we use the microphone, please?
Ariana Patton, Chief of Staff of Code Enforcement.
And I'm Ashley Gibbons, I'm a council liaison, also kind of hybriding into community liaison. So I'm usually the person that would attend these community meetings or neighborhood engagement meetings. So I'm the person that you guys will probably be seeing at the next coffee meeting corner for code enforcement or blight issues. So we are that department now that fights blight, quality of life issues, and minimum property maintenance codes. So if you guys have any questions for us, we're open to those. Yes.
What are the issues you're experiencing in this neighborhood?
Not many that I can think of off the top of my head.
I have a question. We've had, I think, over 15 stop work orders placed on certain properties in our neighborhood over the past year.
That's safety insurance.
That's you? Oh, it's safety. I'll be right. Y'all got lucky.
Oh, well, it's nice meeting you all. Yes.
I don't know if this is in your bailiwick, but, you know, the Broadway and, you know, the college ghetto, as it were, tends to be, you know, trash cans overflowing, trash on the sidewalks, trash that, you know, just doesn't get picked up, cans that never go back in. Who's, you know, is that part of your stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, the sanitation. They can send a ranger out. You can reach out to them. I don't have their contact. I think Elise can connect you guys with sanitation. I think they'll send a ranger out and they can write citations as well. Yes, ma'am.
The fraternities and sororities painting their houses wild colors, is that a code enforcement issue? I mean, is that, when does that cross over to become advertising or some type of, something that's other than just, you know, a painting a house, you know, a color, or just painting a home? What is that?
I think a lot of those issues fall under HDLC when it comes to specific colors and,
you know, like, I know, like, when like, if you take Melba's, for example, when they painted the house across the street, for example, when they painted it blue, you know, that was considered to be advertising because they painted the same color as their sign. And so they had to repaint that house. But when you take, you know, some of the fraternities and they're painting their houses purple, green, and gold, or red, white, and blue, you know, this isn't just painting your house a color. It is, you know, it's different. So I'm just curious, you know, when does that cross over into code enforcement?
that wouldn't fall under code.
Oh, okay, I don't know what it is.
Yes, sir.
What does code enforcement do? And can you give us a success in anything that you have done?
Yeah, so basically what we do, if there is blight, high grass, if there's roof damage, that's when we go out, we send an inspector out. They complete an inspection, take photos, and then based on the code, they cite violations on that property. We do title research, notice the current property owner or any owners that are listed or heirs if the person is or the owners are deceased. We notice them, we hold an adjudication process, a hearing, and through that hearing, like Councilmember Jerusalem mentioned, we can give demolition orders and find the property owner guilty. And through those orders and fines, we can add that to the tax bill. So success stories can also be like demolition, abatement by demolition, or we can take them through a sheriff's sale process as well.
But successes in this area, anything recently? It doesn't sound like.
Not that I can recall. I'll have to do a little bit more research. I'm pretty new in this role, about 6 months in, so I'm still getting a feel for every neighborhood and what each needs of those neighborhoods are. So I look forward to learning more about this area and what you guys' needs are specifically. Yes, sir.
Is part of code enforcement's arena enforcing the municipal rules regarding placing trash cans on the street and returning them?
That would be sanitation.
That's sanitation.
Yes.
So if a resident has a trash can, they're supposed to put it out the evening before and return it by sunset the day of pickup, right? If they do not, I call sanitation.
Yes.
And sanitation issues a citation?
Yes. They'll send out a ranger and they'll issue a citation.
Thank you.
Can I make this observation about that?
Sure.
If that would be enforced, more than half of our rental property
Yeah.
The students aren't even aware. We communicate with Tulane. Please help us enforce this. Inform your students. We become responsible neighbors, and it's not enforced. So you're saying sanitation's the perfect department to handle that?
Yes.
I have another question.
Okay.
A Hurricane Ida tarp that's completely deteriorated and flying everywhere on a rental property.
That would be
That's
wonderful.
something you would
Yes,
be able to handle.
Finally, yes. That would be
Thank you very much. I'm going, one more question.
A property on our block that used to have 3 parking spaces, 5 individual grown-ups living there that are not related. And the city took out one of the parking spaces because it was near a fire hydrant, but they had a driveway there that they took out. And then the 3rd parking space is being used for outdoor living, not parking. Is that code enforcement? Whether
No. Again, that's safety permit with the zoning, yeah. They're up soon, so y'all can. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all very much. Good luck to you. Next, we're going to hear from the Department of Public Works Infrastructure Program Administrator Khalid Saleh. Is that correct? Or a representative? Thank you, sir.
So my name is Khalid Saleh. I'm the program. Khalid Saleh, the program administrator for the infrastructures, responsible for all the projects going around the city. I would like to introduce Mr. Rick Hathaway. He's our new director for the Department of Public Work. So please welcome him aboard. He's been here a month. Just about a month. And Mr. Kevin is in the traffic. Any related question to traffic driveway, you could relate it to Kevin. So if you have any issue with any driveways or anything.
Well, I'm glad to be here. I just started a few weeks ago. I have been a past employee of the city government. I worked in the Department of Streets way back in the 80s and 90s, so I do have a lot of firsthand experience of to use that and continue to work with the department and hopefully will become more and more successful.
We created a map before we came to this meeting. I could leave it with you. It'll show you the total of project that was done and completed in your neighborhood with this association. And the future project that is going on right now, we started last week. I think it was January 1st. I think it started like second weekday of January.
This is the Adams Street project.
That's the Adams Street projects. It's full reconstruction. I think we have total 14 blocks that are fully reconstructed, meaning replacing the drainage, replacing the water, and replacing the sewer. 2 blocks will be just mill overlay because the utility have been rehabbed before, so there is no need for us to go and redo it again. But also we have, because Sewage and Water Board, they have to finish their consent programming, they have to finish all the sewer rehab before May of 2025, is mandated by EPA. So they have a lot of projects is going to be going on. We are coordinating with Sewage and Water Board. So they will have also in your area about 40 projects in this neighborhood. It will be doing sewer replacement only, and they will do the sewer replacement or the sewer point repairs, make sure the sewer is functioning, and then get out of the way, and we'll come after them and fix the street. So,
does anyone have any questions?
Anybody has any
about the
questions?
projects?
And I'll leave them out here for you.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Yes.
We're very concerned about the public trees along the street, along Adams. I'm in the CCA Association, and we planted close to 500 trees.
Can you give him the mic so he...
My name is Barry Cole, and I'm with the Central Carrollton Association. And after Katrina, we planted close to 500 trees in our immediate area. Sewage and Water Board is working on Adams Street right now, the 16 and 1700 blocks.
Yeah.
They're putting all their pipe, all their heavy equipment right under the drip line of the trees and on the critical routes.
Is that the one next to the cemetery?
Yes.
So I met with Mark from Barkham Parkway this afternoon, and we asked, it's not all sewage and water board. If you look at it, they're all concrete pipes, right? They're huge concrete pipes.
Some of them are plastic about this inch, this large.
So we send a notice to the contractor to go ahead and move them away, so hopefully by next week they will be moved around. And we're gonna be, not to worry about the trees, it's in our specification that they have to make sure they do protection for every tree, and the project manager and the inspector will be watching for these things. And we have a meeting next week with Mark from Barkham Parkway, just to update him.
Who would be the contact if trees begin to be harmed and we see them? Who would we contact?
Mark with Barkham Parkway.
Mark?
Yeah.
What's his full name?
It used to be Tika, but she retired the end of December.
Yeah.
But the new guy, he been the director for Barkham Parkway. I'll send you, I will email you his name, and he just hired another 3 personnel that they're gonna come meet with us, Department of Public Works next week, I think next Thursday, to discuss all these issues.
Well, the Park and Parkways has not been transparent at all. It's taken us 4 or 5 months to get replies. And there were people quitting Park and Parkways last year, and we lost some of our contacts. But the tree issue is really important to us.
I will make sure I will send you their contact with their phone numbers and their emails, and also the pipes next to the cemetery, because I look at Google, like the branch of the oak tree is lower, it's almost a truck, a regular SUV truck cannot pass under it. So that's why we're moving the pipes stacked over there next to the cemetery, so somebody could avoid the little branch that is hanging over.
Well, there was a neighbor who called me who lives in 1900 block of Adams, next to the other cemetery.
Okay.
There's about a 150-year-old live oak, which is in part of the right-of-way of the street. She said a workman told her that Park and Parkways was going to have it cut down.
We're not cutting any trees down.
But
we do not cut the trees down at all unless it's fallen and it's dangerous to the next resident. It's like there is a definite issue that is going to be collapsing in the future. Yes, we cut it down.
Well,
but if we cut it down, we go plant in the same neighborhood.
About this big.
I mean, but we give you like about 17 of them for each live oak.
Well, I read the Sewage and Water Board contract, 800 pages long, and FEMA has a whole section in there where they say that the Sewage and Water Board has to comply with tree protection, or they could lose federal funding. And it says that in the contract. I'm sure they have the same one in Department of Public Works.
We try to avoid harming any trees, and we try to protect them as much as we can. If you see anybody doing some damage to a tree, please let us know. Copy some in the email, and we'll leave our emails with you.
Very good. And I'll get you information. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for the specifications for work. A lot of the curbing in this area is 100 years old, and it's granite curbing. Are you going to remove that granite curbing, do the street work, and then replace it? Because it's very hard substance. It's been there over 100 years. If you put it back, it'll still be there 100 years from now. It also prevents people from from driving over the curbs and parking in yards and blocking sidewalks, which we have a lot of problems with. So that's my first question about the granite curbing. The second one, I've seen this on 2 locations, and I'm not sure whether the city is doing this or whether the property owner is doing this, but where the verge, the green area between the sidewalk and the street, on the corner of Hampson and Audubon, it's, after the work was completed, it was covered with these granite blocks about the size of my fist, completely over, and then on the other side of the sidewalk, the area between the house and the sidewalk was covered over with the same rocks. I've seen some of these D2D developers go in and just take that rock material and fill the whole front yard with it so they can park on it. No parking, no permits, no nothing, just doing it. So are you putting those granite rocks down? And if not, who's going to enforce them? Because the rocks are already starting to fall into the gutter. And those are going to be really hard to get out with a pump.
So this one, this question, the second one, I'm going to have Kevin answer on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, so for the second question, that is typically going to be illegal work done by the property owner. So for the portion between the sidewalk and the street, that would fall under DPW's jurisdiction, and for the park on property between the sidewalk and the house, that would fall under safety and permits. I can follow up with you after to see, because we want to make sure that there's a 311 case so we can tie it to, so when we send our inspectors out, they have something to mark down the evaluation. And
Because there's developers like to do it because they don't want to mow the grass. So they're just going to put rocks on it.
Yes, I'll follow up with you, and as well, anyone else, any issues such as that, I'll be around for a few minutes afterwards. Yes.
I have been lucky because I'm on the corner of Plum and Fern. And our construction, that was a nightmare. It was 3 years of a total devastating nightmare. My corner was built 3 times. They demolished it, they built it, they demolished it, they built it, and I'm paying for this because I'm the taxpayer. I'm watching this. On top of it all, you have the issue with the right-of-way. A lot of us spend we understand that the right-of-way belongs to the city, but we spend a lot of money maintaining that, and that benefits the value of our property. So for example, right now you have this construction, and it happened to me. So I'm talking now in the new project that you have going, on the corner of Fern and Jeanette. They took the equipment, a pile of rocks as tall as I am, and they put all that on the right-of-way. Now, they went and removed the rocks now, but that pristine lawn that my neighbor had in there has 1 million rocks. You know, you'll never get all the rocks out of there, and then you try to mow that. So I don't know if there is, when you go into these projects, don't you have, the contractor should have a designated spot for equipment and materials. You cannot just go to anybody's in front of your house. You wake up one morning and you have all this equipment in front of your house. I understand that it has to work, you know, you have to work with the contractor. But actually there are certain boundaries that are being crossed that those issues should be avoided, if possible. For example, the cemetery area where you had that other equipment, if not affecting the trees, you could go over there and put the equipment over there. But don't go in front of this pristine yard and dump all this stuff in their front lawn. There were pipes, you go by there right now and it's a nightmare.
Ma'am, this is the time for questions.
Yes.
And we all have.
The question is, what are they going to do in the future moving forward for this equipment and all this stuff for everybody else's right-of-way?
Thank you. Gentlemen?
So I know what you talk about. That was part of the project that we put back in 2018 and 2019, before the COVID. It was multiple blocks in every project. So it was like maybe 50, 80, 200 blocks in one single project. So the contractor, we're jumping from one block to another block, not completing this block, maybe abandoning it for 6 months and then come back again. But what DPW did now, moving forward, and in all the project moving forward, regardless how big the project is, we put a task orders, concept in the specification. So if you look at Adams Street, I have a plans for anybody who wants, which is only one sheet. It shows like which blocks the contractor could start work on it, and he cannot move to the next 2 blocks unless he's 95% complete on the first 2 blocks. So we implemented a task order concept, like Adams Street, I think we have 5 task orders. So it's divided by like 3 blocks at a time. So he cannot move to the next task order unless he does pavement, maybe like when he have like little touch of ADA ramp, little sidewalk, we okay to move them to the next one. But you should have access to your driveway, access to your house at all times. Even if they're doing construction, they should provide you with some maintenance aggregates where you could get to your house.
Thank you very much. One more question and then we'll move on.
I think I have a real relevant question. What is the exact timeline? Because I just heard you say the sewage and water board has to be finished by May of 2025. Did you mean 2024? Because
no, the whole sewer work, citywide, they have to be done by May, June of 2025.
so when
Every sewer work they have to do under that program, it has to be in by summer of 2025.
so it's going to take more than a year for the roads to be completed.
For which what project?
Adams Street.
No, Adams Street, we doing all the work. DPW doing all the work. I think sewage and water board, between Stantec, they were managing their program, and the guy who was working with DPW moved to another consultant engineer. So the information did not, went to the next project manager. So Fleming went in there and I think did like 40 blocks, sewer replacement. But right now they are out of the way, and our contractor is working on Adams Street.
Okay.
So it should be, like I said, based on the task orders, and it should be one task order after another.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I know y'all all have a lot more questions. We have his email, ksaleh@villa.gov. I'm sure we can all throw rocks at the Department of Public Works all night long without stopping it until our arms bled. But we're going to let them go. Thank you, gentlemen. I will call you. We're going to move forward now with Ms. Ashley Becknell, Safety and Permits. She is the Chief Zoning Official. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, go with it.
Good evening. I am Tammy Jackson, the Director of Safety and Permits. I do have my Chief Zoning Official here, as well as my Chief Building Official.
We've got a lot of competition in here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Okay. Well, because each of us are going to, we're doing a rapid fire. We received 18 questions, so I'm going to make sure I answer each of your questions, or we're going to collectively answer each of the questions. Again, my name is Tammy Jackson. I am the Director of Safety and Permits. With me tonight is my Chief Zoning Official, because I know you guys have a lot of zoning questions, as well as my Chief Building Official. And so we'll start with the questions. First question, what can be done about people who misrepresent the scope of work on permit applications or exceed the scope of work? So we received a complaint, and every complaint is important. And so we respond to the complaint by sending out an inspector to determine whether the scope has indeed been exceeded. Sometimes the permit description may say renovation. We like details, and they may not detail the entirety of the scope of work. But if they have a plumbing riser or they have other information that is in the permit application, we can determine that, hey, that was indeed part of the scope of the work. So the inspector goes and to determine if it does exceed the scope of work. If it does exceed the scope of work, the Chief Building Official generally handles that. and he makes them resubmit what they are doing, as well as there is a fee, additional fee attached to that for the permit application. So in addition to, if say the scope of work was $10,000, and we go over there and we see that there's no way you could do this type of work for $10,000, this is $50,000. Well, in addition to increasing the fee, because permit applications are based on the cost of the scope of work, and so in addition to the additional cost, we will also, if you're doing work, that's work without a permit. So for work without a permit, an additional fee is 200%. So say the permit application would have been $100, 200% would be the fee, $200 plus the $100, so now that permit application is $300. Like I said, in addition to increasing the cost for the permit application. Is there a state agency that will discipline contractors who make misrepresentations of permits? The Louisiana State Licensing Board does control the license of contractors, and I know we communicate with them often. Most of the time, if they're misrepresenting something on a permit, they are probably using unlicensed laborers or something else. And so that's what the Louisiana State Licensing Board of Contractors really regulates. Anything else you can think of, Jerry?
We work closely with them.
Yeah.
I would say that.
Yeah. Oh, well, I said, we work closely, we communicate with them all the time. We find that in permit applications where somebody is saying they're going to be their own contractor, or they're not using the correct type of contractor. For instance, a home improvement contractor can do work up to $75,000, so they definitely cannot build a new house, because if they could, we would all want that, that contract. And then also commercial licensees can only do residential up to $75,000. And pretty much any work over $7,500, you're going to need a licensed contractor. Yes, you can be a general contractor, but that is for your residents. A lot of people confuse that with their investment property. If you do not live in the property, you cannot be the contractor for that property if the work is over $7,500.
$7,500 or
$7,500. Home improvement contractors can do up to $75,000 worth of work. But like I said, you can be a general contractor on the property you live in. I think the intention is you can kill yourself, but you can't kill others. And so that's why they will allow you to be a general contractor on the home you live, on your residence, not property you own, but on your residence. Why is it so hard to get a stop work order issued? Well, we try to work with, compliance is our goal at all times. And so we try to work with people, and if first we don't succeed, we will definitely issue a stop work order. Jay is no stranger to posting them himself, or you might see me one morning posting them because the inspector has gone over, or it's really like anybody can see work without permits. And so we will post a stop work order. And we're actually gearing up to track that more prominently. We haven't done an excellent job in tracking, posting those stop work orders. Why do city officials seem so timid when it comes to enforcement? We aren't. Like I said, we aren't, but we are limited by our resources. Like I said, every complaint is important to us, and we try to respond to each and every complaint. And within those complaints, there are some that if the more important, or actually the bad actors, if we had some that weren't frivolous, we could pay more attention to those others that are, indeed, those complaints that we can take to enforcement. Why is it so hard for inspectors to get inside buildings to inspect? Well, property rights in Louisiana, property rights anywhere, right? You have the right to enjoy your property. So as far as getting inside of the property, there's a process for that. We have to send a letter, have notice, and gain entry. And if that doesn't work, we would then have to use police powers. Is there an exigent circumstance? Like is some evidence? Is something going to be removed? And so we have to weigh that with property rights. Anything you can add to that, Jay, Ashley? Right. It will be if, say, we send them a letter, a gain access letter, and it's pretty standard. The city has received a complaint. We need to inspect the property to determine, whether it's valid or not. They don't answer. We knock on the door. They don't want us to come in. We would have to get almost a warrant to inspect that property. It wouldn't be something that we have the authority to run into anyone's property.
To obtain a warrant, you have to have some
probable cause.
Right, to obtain a warrant, we would need to be able to convince a judge that there's a very good reason. Judges are generally not real excited at the idea of letting us into the property of a private citizen. So we've got to make a pretty good case if we get to that point, which is why those kind of inspections can be tough.
They're both attorneys.
Why are violations of stop work orders ignored? You would have to ask the bad actors. We will continue to go, post another stop work order, and take it to adjudication and do whatever we need to do until we get the person in our office to file for the proper permits and/or we have an enforcement power that is rarely used, and it is in circumstances where there should be a safety component, and it is to pull their power. And generally, even if we have a judgment from a hearing officer, if there is no safety issue concern, sometimes energy, that is not high on their priority list. So we've had judgments before to pull power, but that is not high on energy's priority list for a paying customer. And no safety concern.
Just to sort of elaborate on that, this is one of the areas where if the tools and safety and permits arsenal don't get the job done, so if we issue a stop work order, which generally is one of our best tools, and it's being ignored, the next step requires us to coordinate with the law department to get an attorney assigned to take it to civil district court to prepare the case. And so we just don't have the resources to do that every single time there is a minor violation of a stop work order. That's something that we reserve for a serious case. We've got to decide how to allocate our resources. And for us, priority number one is always going to be a life safety issue. Jay, do you have anything else you need to?
That sums it up pretty well.
What is within the jurisdiction of BZA?
Okay. So the Board of Zoning Adjustments is tasked with a few different things. One of the big ones is variances. So if you need to vary from the terms of the zoning ordinance on something like a bulk and yard measurement or a height measurement, you would go to the BZA and you would seek a variance. You would show that you have a hardship that is not financial, that prevents you from complying with the zoning ordinance. But the other case that I suspect a lot of people around this area are familiar with is that appeals of decisions of the director of the Department of Safety and Permits on matters in the zoning ordinance are heard by the Board of Zoning Adjustments. So I'm there pretty much every month presenting the department's case on why we made the decisions that we did and setting out our reasoning. The BBSA is sort of the other acronym-heavy board you'll hear about. BBSA stands for Board of Building Standards and Appeals. The BBSA primarily hears very technical requests for deviations from the International Building Code. Those meetings generally fly way above my head. They're almost exclusively the province of architects and engineers. But they also will hear appeals of decisions made pursuant to the building code. So one issue that's come up frequently that the BBSA has been tangling with is when is a permit application considered complete? Excuse me, the completeness of a permit application depends on several technical factors. that I am not qualified to decide. Jay makes those decisions as an architect, and so those appeals go to that board.
Didn't we just have a recent one, 1533 Broadway?
1533 got decided today by the BBSA.
Yeah, on the 1533 Broadway, we made the determination that they did not have a complete application before a certain one of the IZDs came into effect. So they appealed that, and the board sustained, the safety and permits decision that it wasn't complete in time to avoid the requirements of that IZD.
How do I report illegal work on a house in my neighborhood? You can call 311. You can email us at inspections@nola.gov. For zoning violations, it's zoningviolations@nola.gov. And you can email code enforcement. It's just, but not necessarily illegal work. A lot of times we work hand in hand. Yeah, you can call us as well, 658-7200. And we do have a decision tree, but I promise there's not more than 5 prompts. Yes, sir.
Do the owners of the house, of the property, if they're having work done, do they still have to post the permit in the window, in the front, so that the neighbors can see the type of work that's being done?
Yes, sir.
And that they have a permit?
Yes, sir. And you can look for permits on One Stop as well. You do not have to log in to see everyone's business. You can, the only time you need to log into One Stop is to apply for a permit or pay for a permit. Any other time you can go in, you have the address, and you can look for anything applied for on that location.
And that's onestop@nola.gov. The other thing you can do is sign up for Notice Me. Notice Me is a city website that allows you to put in either a specific geographical area or a neighborhood association, or it's got a lot of flexibility, and then you can tell it what things you want to be notified of. So you can say, I only want to be notified if somebody applies for a conditional use or a zoning change, or you can go down to the level of I want to be notified if somebody applies for a permit. And if there's an area that's really important to you, maybe your exact block, that's a good way to be preemptively notified of anything that us or CPC would be doing, with the exception of some of the more minor permits, mechanical, things like that.
Notify me.
Notify Me. I don't know the exact address, but I'll look it up. But if you Google Notify Me New Orleans, I believe it's like one of the top results. Claire, you don't happen to know it.
Yes, I think it's noticeme.nola.gov.
Noticeme.nola.gov.
Also, currently there are no repercussions for not posting the permit, so I'm working on adding to the ordinance a fine for not posting the permit. Because, yeah, it's like I remind them, hey, you're supposed to post the permit, and they're, okay, well, what are you going to do to me?
So what happens with 1533? They were in violation. They were shown to be in violation. They appealed it. They lost their appeal. Now what? Because the owner of this place has been doing a lot of damage throughout this entire square. And I don't see how this is anything other than the cost of doing business to them. But by the way that the city has responded to this.
So the city has revoked that permit. We revoked that permit last year. What's being appealed currently is our revocation of the permit by the owner of that property. So it's sort of working its way through the process. It went to the Board of Zoning Adjustments for whether our revocation of the permit was proper. The Board of Zoning Adjustments said, well, one of the arguments you're making is that the completion date for the permit is different than what the department says. So that question had to go over to the BBSA. The BBSA came back and said, nope, the department was right. They got the date correct for the completion. So it will go back to BZA. I believe that'll probably be heard at the February meeting, although there's a chance they'll take it up at the January meeting. January meeting was supposed to be on the 10th. That's the day we had the rainstorm, so they pushed the meeting back to January 29th. There are some procedural and notice issues that are still a little bit unclear, so I can't tell you for sure if it'll be January or February, but it will be heard.
But that's not what I'm asking you. let's assume
It has
that
to
at
go
the
through
end
all
of the
the
day.
administrative
we win.
steps before we can tell you definitively what ends. You know, it has to go through the administrative procedure first.
We've revoked their permit. They do not have a permit at this moment in
But the
time.
work is done.
They do not have a certificate of occupancy. I believe there's still ongoing work, but I'm not exactly
Yeah, it's
familiar
not
with the
complete.
specifics.
It wasn't.
That I know of, it's not complete.
Have you seen the property? I have pictures of the property before and after. It is after now. So what I'm saying is, after you go through all of these hoops, and the city wins, whatever wins means, then what?
If there is illegally done work, we would absolutely consult with our law department to see if that's something that we can enforce in the courts by seeking an injunction or specific performance. I think if they have done work during this period where they have not had a permit, I'm not sure when the last time we inspected that is, but we would
Yeah.
definitely look into those allegations and take
Wouldn't
them very
issue a
seriously.
certificate of occupancy and wouldn't release their meters.
Right, the opinion power.
I'm sorry, say that again?
We wouldn't issue a certificate of occupancy and we wouldn't release their meters.
So that is the
No
fallout.
power.
They would not be able to rent that property out.
Correct.
They would not be able to get services to the place.
Right, no utilities.
Until they submit a new permit with legal scope of work and do that work, and then they can get occupancy. I mean, it's not
Cost
gonna,
of doing business.
it's not gonna be out of commerce forever. I mean, that's not possible either in that location.
Thank you very much. We're not going to cure all of these issues. I agree, we're keeping an eye on that. Ken Jelpe, who's not here tonight, was one of the people that won that. We're going to continue to fight.
very involved.
I agree with you that it's a fight with Tedesco and the other D2D developers that's ongoing in our neighborhood. And it's ongoing in our neighborhood, in CCA, in CAD, in Black Pearl, which is Udna, and Broadmoor, Fontainebleau. We have been working on this for 18 months that I'm aware of, and we will not stop. What y'all don't see is that we meet every month for 2 or 3 hours, focusing on these issues. And then we also independently leave that meeting and go do another 10 or 15 hours per week on these and other issues, especially Tedesco and especially the D2Ds. So we're fighting it in the best way we can. The city is doing what they can do. We are hoping the city will do more. And we're looking at legal action, which is one way to beat them up. But other than that, I agree with you in part. Sadly, some of this has been cost of doing business. We're over time. So I want to thank you all very much, Ms. Jackson. Thank you very much. Police Director, Safety and Ken